Lucy Letby, the psychopathic nurse who killed babies. Or did she? Imagine you're at a hospital. Your daughter was just born premature. She's in the neonatal ICU, surrounded by equipment, doctors, nurses. You can't be in that room every single minute, so you trust. You trust the professionals. You trust the system. You trust that when you step out of that room, your daughter is still going to be breathing when you come back. Now imagine there's someone in that hospital who, according to the prosecution, was doing the exact opposite of everything she swore to do when she got her degree. Not saving lives, taking them, one by one. And the victims were the most defenseless human beings that exist. Premature babies who weren't even aware they were in the world yet. That's the case of Lucy Letby, a British nurse, convicted of murdering 7 babies and attempting to murder 8 others. 15 life sentences with absolutely no chance of parole. To a lot of people, she is the biggest monster in recent UK history. But here's the question that's been splitting experts, lawyers, and the general public all over the world in 2026. What if she's innocent? Today you're going to hear everything. The evidence against her. The doubts about that evidence. The hospital that may have tried to cover up its own failures. And at the end, you're going to have to make up your own mind. Because this case is not over. Who is Lucy Letby? Lucy Letby was born on January 4th, 1990, in a small town called Hereford in rural England. Middle-class family. Dad sold furniture. Mom worked as an accounts clerk. A completely ordinary childhood. No red flags, no dark history, nothing that would make you look twice. From a young age, she said she wanted to work with children. And this isn't one of those stories where you look back and think, oh yeah, the signs were always there. No, by everything we know, she was a normal kid who became a normal teenager who became a seemingly normal adult. She studied nursing at the University of Chester and graduated in 2011 with a 5-band qualification, which meant she was certified to care for critically ill babies in neonatal intensive care. That's not something just anyone reaches. It takes specific training, rigorous evaluations, real commitment. In 2012, she started working at the Countess of Chester Hospital in northwest England. By all accounts from her co-workers at the time, she was well-liked, dedicated, always volunteering to cover extra shifts, never complained about the tough workload. The kind of colleague you actually want next to you during a brutal overnight shift. Outside of work, she took salsa dance classes, hung out with friends, lived a completely normal life. On the outside, the perfect nurse. On the inside, according to the prosecution, a cold, methodical killer who picked her victims from the most vulnerable babies in the unit. All right, let's get into what actually happened. The pattern that couldn't be a coincidence. Between June 2015 and June 2016, something started happening in the neonatal ward at the Countess of Chester Hospital that nobody could explain. Stable babies were suddenly collapsing. No apparent reason. No gradual deterioration. Babies who had been responding well to treatment would just crash out of nowhere. And in some cases, they were dying before anyone could even intervene. The unit's mortality rate during that period was significantly higher than what you'd expect for a hospital of that size. The doctors in the unit started noticing a disturbing pattern. The collapses and the deaths were happening with an abnormal frequency during one specific nurse's shifts. Lucy Letby. They brought those concerns to hospital management more than once, and according to later accounts, they were dismissed. Management allegedly said there was no basis for the suspicions and that the doctors were being unfair to the nurse. But the pattern kept going. In July 2016, management finally acted, but not the way the doctors expected. Instead of launching a formal investigation, they simply removed Lucy Letby from the neonatal unit and transferred her to administrative duties, away from the babies. No official explanation, no formal process. And you know what happened after she was pulled from the unit? The unexplained death stopped. That fact alone was one of the most devastating points in the case against Lucy Letby. The prosecution used it as a central pillar. Take her out of the ward, the death stopped. Put her back, they returned. That's when the police got involved. The notes and the alleged confession. During the investigation, police found handwritten notes at Lucy Letby's home. Scraps of paper with things she had written herself. And what was written on those notes brought the investigation to a standstill. Phrases like, "I am evil. I don't deserve to live. I killed her on purpose because I didn't like her." The prosecution presented those notes as a confession on paper. Irrefutable proof, in their view, that Lucy knew exactly what she had done and was, in a moment of vulnerability, letting it out. But the defense had a completely different interpretation. Those notes, according to Lucy's lawyers, were a journal. The anguished outpouring of a woman who was being silently pointed at as a suspect by the very hospital she worked for, without ever being formally told or given a chance to defend herself. A woman in emotional collapse, writing things that didn't reflect facts, but despair. And here's a detail the prosecution didn't highlight with the same energy. Those same notes also contained statements of innocence. "I did nothing wrong." Phrases that went in the complete opposite direction of the ones the prosecution chose to show the jury. The question is, can you take excerpts from someone's emotional journal and present them as a confession? That debate was never resolved at trial, and it still hasn't been resolved today. The trial. Lucy Letby was formally charged in November 2020, for years after the events. 7 counts of murder and 15 counts of attempted murder related to 17 different babies. The trial began in 2022 and lasted nearly a full year, making it one of the longest and most complex criminal proceedings in British history. What did the prosecution actually put forward as evidence? First, presence. Lucy was present during virtually every single incident. In several cases, she was the only adult recorded in the room when the baby collapsed. Second, medical evidence. Some of the babies had blood test results showing signs of insulin poisoning and air embolism, methods that any trained neonatal nurse would know how to carry out. Third, the records. Lucy was caught removing shift handover sheets from the hospital, documents that could have confirmed irregularities in the baby's cases. Fourth, the handwritten notes you already know about. Fifth, general behavior. Colleagues testified that she showed an unusual fascination with the most serious cases, that she seemed excited when babies entered critical condition, and that she had strangely expressed wanting her first patient death to just happen already so she could get it out of the way. In August 2023, after months of deliberation, the jury reached its verdict: guilty. 7 murders. 6 attempted murders. Guilty on almost every single count. Lucy Letby refused to appear at the sentencing hearing. She was convicted in her absence to 15 whole life sentences with no possibility of parole, the harshest sentence the British system allows. The plot twist nobody saw coming. Now I need you to really pay attention here, because what comes next changes everything you just heard. In February 2025, while Lucy Letby had already been behind bars for over a year, something happened that shook the entire case. A panel of 14 international medical experts, top-level neonatologists and pediatricians, who were specifically brought together to re-examine the medical evidence in the case, published their findings. 14 experts from multiple countries, looking at the exact same evidence that convicted Lucy Letby. Their verdict? There's no medical evidence that Lucy Letby deliberately harmed or killed any of the babies. According to the panel, the deaths that occurred in the neonatal unit can be attributed to natural causes, substandard care, and systemic failures within the hospital. Real problems, serious problems, but not problems caused by a killer nurse. The panel was chaired by Shu Li, a retired neonatologist from the University of Toronto, widely considered one of the world's leading authorities in the field. These aren't people without credentials. They're not hired guns paid by Lucy's family. They are independent specialists who looked at the data and reached a conclusion that directly contradicts what the jury decided. And here's the part that left a lot of British legal experts speechless. Throughout Lucy Letby's entire original trial, the defense team did not call a single medical expert to challenge the prosecution's evidence. Not one. In a case where the central evidence was medical and scientific, her defense team let the jury hear only one side of the story. In British law, that's considered a potentially serious enough failure to overturn a conviction. Lucy's new lawyer, Mark MacDonald, was blunt about it. There is no forensic evidence. There is no CCTV footage. There is no eyewitness who saw Lucy Letby harm any child. What there is statistics, patterns, and coincidence. Was the hospital hiding something? But now we get to the layer that turns this case from a story about a nurse into something much bigger. While Lucy Letby was serving her sentence, a parallel investigation was quietly moving forward. And the target of that investigation wasn't Lucy, it was the hospital itself. In June 2025, 3 former senior members of the Countess of Chester Hospital leadership team were arrested. The suspicion? Gross negligence manslaughter. The allegation is that hospital management knew about the appalling conditions in the neonatal unit and repeatedly ignored the warnings from doctors, prioritizing the hospital's reputation over patient safety. In April 2026, one of those executives was arrested again, this time on suspicion of perverting the course of justice. Think about what that means. The hospital where the babies died is being investigated for negligence that may have caused those deaths. The executives who dismissed the doctor's concerns, who brushed off the clinical team's warnings, who chose to quietly transfer a nurse rather than open a formal investigation. They are now facing criminal charges. In an article published in The New Yorker, which was actually blocked from circulating in the UK to avoid influencing a second trial involving Lucy, investigated exactly this context. The neonatal unit had serious problems with staffing, hygiene, and protocol. Overworked doctors, medical errors piling up without being properly reported, an environment where premature babies were at real risk for reasons that had absolutely nothing to do with Lucy Letby. The question that refuses to go away is, was it easier for the institution to point the finger at a nurse than to admit the entire system was failing? I'm not saying that's what happened, but the ongoing criminal investigation suggests that possibility is being taken very seriously by the authorities. Where is Lucy Letby today? Lucy Letby is currently held at Braunfield Prison in Surrey, southern England, one of the country's maximum security women's facilities. In January 2026, internal reports leaked to the press revealed that she had landed the role of librarian within her prison wing, considered one of the most sought-after jobs in the facility. Sources describe her as a model inmate, organized, maintaining a good relationship with the officers. She continues, to this day, to maintain her innocence. Her new legal team has filed a formal application for review with the Criminal Cases Review Commission, the independent body in the UK that investigates potential miscarriages of justice. The commission confirmed it will examine the case, but issued a warning. Given the volume and complexity of the material involved, the review could take years, not months. 2 previous appeals to the Court of Appeal have already been rejected. The road ahead is long and deeply uncertain. In February 2026, Netflix released the documentary The Investigation of Lucy Letby, presenting both sides of the case in a balanced way and featuring, for the very first time, a public statement from the mother of one of the listed victims, the first family member to speak publicly outside the context of the trial. The documentary is generating intense debate across Europe, and the inquest into the baby's deaths are being reopened. Final thoughts. So let's get to the bottom line. If Lucy Letby is guilty, we're looking at one of the worst serial killers in recent British history. A woman who chose nursing as her profession, who swore to protect lives, and who deliberately took the lives of the most fragile and defenseless beings that exist. Babies who weren't even aware of the world yet. And she did it repeatedly, methodically, over the course of an entire year. If Lucy Letby is innocent, We're looking at one of the greatest miscarriages of justice in 21st century Europe. A woman sentenced to die in prison for crimes she never committed, based on medical evidence that 14 international specialists say is insufficient, without her own original defense team ever calling a single expert to challenge that evidence. Meanwhile, the hospital where those deaths happened may have used this nurse as a shield to hide decades of institutional negligence. Neither possibility is comfortable. Neither one can be ignored. The review commission still has years of work ahead of it. The hospital is still under investigation. The executives are still facing criminal charges. And Lucy Letby is still sitting in a cell, working as a librarian, saying she's innocent. This story isn't over, and the next chapter could change everything. Tell me in the comments, do you think she's guilty or innocent? And more importantly, why? Because this is exactly the kind of case where the answer isn't obvious and where your opinion might shift the more you learn. If this video made you think, share it with someone who loves a good real-life mystery. See you in the next one.